Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. Today with us is Andrey Kartynov. He is former Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council. Welcome to the podcast. Uh,
Thank you.
and if you'd like to say a little about the Russian International Affairs Council, and then we can discuss the big news of the week, the SCO meeting.
Well, we launched the council about 15 years ago, and I was the founding director general of the institution. The idea was to create something in Russia that would be similar to CFR in the United States, or maybe a kind of hybrid institution, a mixture of CFR and CSIS to uh, make a bridge between academia and decision-making bodies. So we worked on foreign policy advice. We had many projects, and I think that we made our modest contribution to building trust and understanding between nations, and also in enlightening the Russian public about the modern world. So, in a nutshell, that's what we've been doing for a long period of time, and the council is still alive and well. So, a new generation of scholars has taken over. I wish them well, and I hope that this work will continue.
So basically, the opposite of what most American think tanks do. That-
Well, let me tell you that I started my professional career within academia, so I more or less know what academic institutions do, and I know that there are some assets, but there are also some liabilities. And arguably, the most important liability is that what academics do in their ivory towers is detached from real life, and of course, it is a challenge to anchor this research to day-to-day politics and specific decisions that are made by bureaucrats.
well, I would say that it's not just academia in the West that's in their ivory towers detached from reality, but I think most of the leadership in the West is detached from reality. And
Uh,
they are the world as opposed to the SCO, which is the non-world that we just had in China. And there seems to be a lot more non-world than the world.
yeah. Uh, uh,
So, what do you think of the accomplishments in the SCO? How it went over? What's going to come out of the meetings?
well, let me start with saying that SCO has many critics. There are many people uh, uh, in the West, but not only in the West, who believe that SCO is not really serious. And I think that there are three specific lines of criticism that we should keep in mind. First of all, they say that this body is simply too diverse. There are too many nations, different political systems, different values. Sometimes these nations are engaged in direct confrontation with each other. Take India and Pakistan, or India and China. It is very difficult to find a common denominator. The second line of criticism is that the mandate of SCO is too general. They deal with everything. They can focus on security, they can focus on development, they can talk about, I don't know, digital world, but they can also work on fighting against terrorism. And of course, the third line of criticism is that this body is profoundly asymmetrical in the sense that China is much more powerful than any combination of other participants, and that creates dangerous asymmetries and potential biases. China might dominate. China might use SCO as a mechanism to promote its specific foreign policy goals. So my take is that, of course, we cannot simply brush off this criticism, but in certain ways, all these liabilities are also comparative advantages of the group. For instance, the group is indeed very diverse, but by being diverse, the group can gain additional legitimacy and additional inclusivity. So if anything can be reached within SCO, the odds are that the same approaches can be agreed upon within a broader community of nations, maybe even at a global level. Now, the mandate is indeed very broad and maybe even ambiguous, but at the same time, it allows SCO to focus on what is important now. So the SCO can respond to the change in political and economic environment and can adjust itself to meet new challenges and to use new opportunities. And finally, of course, China is the most powerful, at least economically, the most powerful member of SCO, but it doesn't mean that SCO is controlled or dominated by China. In a way, SCO is an interesting model of multilateralism, and this model is yet to be tested, but so far, I think participating nations were able to find the common denominators and to agree even on the most sensitive and difficult issues. So I think that this particular summit that took place in China a couple of days ago was an important milestone in the institutional development of this organization. For instance, they agreed to launch a new investment bank for SCO. They also developed a new strategy for next 10 years, and there is a lot of real stuff there. So this body is gradually becoming more inclusive. Now we have a couple of nations which are partners of SCO. We can even talk about SCO plus. So it's not just about the 10 states which are there, but it's about maybe 24 nations which are directly or indirectly associated with SCO, and this number is likely to grow. So I would say that it was a successful summit, and I think it was important that SCO will complement other multilateral bodies like BRICS, for instance, or G20. It might be a source of interesting ideas and models, and maybe it might serve as a source of new proposals submitted to the United Nations Security Council or to other universal organizations.
Do you think it may supplement the UN? Because what we see with the UN now is what we saw with the League of Nations before World War II, that it just basically expired as an organization. It just became, it wasn't dominated by the US like the UN is, but it became a toothless tiger all the same. Or actually, it always was. But the UN now has become basically the same thing. Nobody reads their reports. Nobody cares. It seems what the UN has to say.
Well, any international organization is as strong and as efficient as its member states allow it to be. So unfortunately, right now, the world is divided, or I wouldn't even say divided, but fragmented. And it's very difficult to reach consensus, even within the Security Council, even within the P5, within the group of 5 permanent members of the Security Council. And indeed, it paralyzes the United Nations. We see that the United Nations does not play a significant role in any of the most serious conflict situations that we see in the world today. And of course, it's regretful, it's deplorable, but the United Nations remains the only universal organization that we have. There is no other institution that could replace the United nations and could earn the same level of legitimacy and credibility. If you take SCO, I think it might assist the United Nations. It might provide the United Nations with new ideas and proposals, and might even prepare some plans for United Nations reforms. But SCO does not represent the whole world. The United Nations now has 193 members, and of course, it is by far the most representative institutions we have right now. So I think that I would agree to all the criticism of the United Nations, and I think that in some cases we see also a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy with the United Nations. We see duplication of functions between the specialized agencies. We see probably too much of paperwork. Indeed, there are many reports, and it seems that every department is trying to produce as many reports as possible. There are even, some say that there are some ethnic groups, ethnic mafias within the United Nations, and there are many problems. We can talk about that forever. But I think that we should start working on the United Nations reforms. And unfortunately, when they talk about such reforms, they focus only on the composition of the Security Council. But there are many other problems that should also get our attention. We can talk about the Secretariat, about how the United Nations is funded, about how the United Nations defines its KPIs. So even if we cannot revise and reform the Security Council in the immediate future, it doesn't mean that we should sit on our hands and we should do nothing in terms of reforming the United Nations from the bottom up, starting with a relatively small but nevertheless quite important changes in how the organization operates, and then gradually moving higher to more politically sensitive and more controversial issues, including the membership to the Security Council and the veto power of permanent members and other issues which are not easy to resolve.
Do you think BRICS, well, with the SCO and BRICS, do you think they're um, supplementing each other or complementing each other?
Well, I think that sometimes they say that these are two bodies of the same type, but they're very different. Institutionally, SCO is stronger than BRICS because SCO has its office, it has its secretariat, it has its permanent budget, so it is a full-fledged organization. It's not a group of nations that meets from time to time. And BRICS is different. It doesn't have any permanent staff or any budget, but instead, BRICS has its new development bank, which SCO is still working on. A similar bank should emerge within SCO, but it will take time. So in terms of finance, BRICS has a certain advantage. Now, SCO is based on the regional principle. It involves countries which are located in Eurasia. And the BRICS is a transcontinental body. Right. It has members from all the continents. So that creates certain advantages and certain disadvantages. Both bodies are trying to create various adjacent institutions mechanisms that would allow the member states to cooperate in different fields, including business or education or civil society or gender, various bodies which are loosely affiliated to either BRICS or SCO, and which have their own dynamics and its own development momentum. So I think that in a way, the two bodies complement each other. I think that there is a degree of competition, but maybe this competition is healthy. But the most important is that these both bodies are non-Western. They're not anti-Western. They are not necessarily opposed to the West, but they represent nations which used to be underrepresented in global political and economic decisions. And that's what is important, because these nations from the global south mostly wants their voices to be heard, if not listened to. And unfortunately, there is an institutional deficit in the global south. So both BRICS and SCO are attempts to fill this vacuum of institutional representation that we see right now in the global south.
Uh, Maybe it's my imagination, but it seems like uh, the vassals of the U.S., and in this case, Europe, almost in general, the non-Russian, non-Belarusian portion of Europe, with very few exceptions, Japan and South Korea are all walling themselves off from a larger economic role or participation. Do you think this is something that's going to affect them directly, or this is something that they're going to weather and move on, or something that's going to cost them a lot in the future?
Well, I think that definitely it's not a normal situation. It's not a normal situation when, for instance, the European Union has practically no strategic autonomy that it could demonstrate. And it becomes dependent on decisions that are made on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. They worked with Biden and they seem to be happy with the transatlantic partnership under Joe Biden and his administration. Now, with Donald Trump, I think they are unhappy because Donald Trump wants to revise and to change a lot in the US foreign policy. But at the same time, Europe is not ready to take an independent role in the global affairs. They are not ready to become self-sufficient and to become truly independent. The same can be said about US partners in the Pacific. I think that they are often looking for some kind of guidance, not to use a different word, to come from the White House. And I think that this is not the way it should be. Definitely, the United States will remain a very important international player. It has a lot of influence on the global system. And in many cases, the United States deserve to lead other nations. But it doesn't mean that other nations should not have their own views, their own priorities, and their own positions on important international issues, because, of course, there are no two nations in the world which would have absolutely the same set of interests.
Of course.
Interests differ. You take the United States and Canada, and of course, you see that even with these two neighboring nations, there are certain differences in opinions and in views on many international matters. You look to Europe, and even within the European Union, there are differences between the old Europe and the new Europe, between the Nordic European countries and the Southern European countries, between bigger nations and smaller nations. It's natural. But what we have to do I think all of us, is to master the art of true multilateralism. Because there are many formally multilateral organizations, but in most cases, this multilateralism can be described as quasi-multilateralism. You take NATO, again, formally, it's a full-fledged multilateral institution, but of course, we all know who pulls the strings there.
Yes.
So we still have to master this art. And I think it is difficult for bigger nations because they got used to act unilaterally. And I'm talking not only about the United States. Look at China again. For China, it would be natural to act unilaterally. And for centuries, if not for millennia, China's emperors basically did not recognize any equal foreign partners. It was the Middle Kingdom. It was the kingdom in the middle of the world. Now China is trying very hard to practice multilateralism. Sometimes it is successful, sometimes it is not. But I think that there is a steep learning curve in Beijing, and I think that this is an example that we all should study and follow to the extent possible.
What the two things that struck at the SCO, one, the reapproachment between India and China. That's happening much faster than anybody could have thought. And I don't think the Americans ever thought it would happen at all. that Modi would be their tool no
Yeah.
matter what. And the Indians, the meat to keep China from being a power, in a future conflict. So that's one. And the other one is the total collapse of the American policy of isolation of North Korea.
Hmm. Well, let me say that first, I fully agree with your assessment on India, and I think that it was to some extent a self-inflicted wound
Self
for the
goal.
United States, because indeed, if you look at how President Trump dealt with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it was a rather brutal way of making the point, and especially since they used to have very cordial personal
Yes,
relations. So
yes.
Modi didn't deserve, such treatment. I don't know why the United States decided to treat India in such a way. And of course, India had to look for other opportunities. And the most evident opportunity was to start building bridges to Beijing. Again, I hope that it will not inflict an damage beyond repair for the US-India relations. India needs the United States in many ways, and I hope that this damage can be managed. But it has been inflicted, and of course, India will try to explore what it can with China and also with other Eurasian partners. Uh, and this is something that I think we will see in years to come. On North Korea, again, this is a very interesting question because for a very long time, North Korean leaders were desperately trying to have a dialogue with the United States because the United States was supposed to be the problem solver. But unfortunately, that didn't work out the way how they hoped it would in North Korea. So right now, North Korea is exploring also multilateral frameworks, which is new for North Koreans. If you look at the North Korean leaders, they never participated in multilateral bodies and in multilateral gatherings. So what we see today is a new development. We can only hope that this trend will continue and that in North Korea they would feel less concerned about their security. And I think that in the end of the day, that might help to diffuse the situation in the Korean Peninsula. It will take time. It will not be an easy process, but I hope that this process does have future.
Yeah, I think if you notice, A very large chunk of that isolation was coming from both Russia and China on behest of the U.S. They were keeping even though North Korea was a friend, they were keeping them about an arm's distance away, and that seems to have evaporated especially with the joint defense commitment between Russia and North Korea, and then in Kursk as follow-on, and now openly as an economic and societal meeting with the SCO.
Well, let me tell you that in my personal view, nobody really wants to recognize the nuclear status of North Korea. And I think everybody would prefer to see a fully denuclearized Korean Peninsula in future.
True.
But the question how to get there. We know that the nuclear status is literally carved into the North Korean constitution. It's very difficult to disarm North Korea at this stage. And of course, one should also keep in mind that the United States is rapidly building this trilateral military alliance with Japan and South Korea.
Hmm.
And I think that there are reasons for North Koreans to be concerned about these developments, and there are reasons for China and for Russia to engage with North Korea deeper than they used to. At the same time, I think that if we're lucky, we should get back to a broader arrangement around the Korean Peninsula to something similar what we had in the beginning of the century, the so-called six-party talks.
Yes.
It
Yes.
would be very difficult to restore them given the fractures between great powers and given this trend towards bipolarity in the Pacific region. But nevertheless, I think that the only way we can resolve the problem with the Korean Peninsula is by acting together, not against each other, but together with each other. And it's not easy, and I'm not sure that President Trump is ready for such an arrangement, but time will show whether we can manage it or we cannot.
I had more than a few friends that served in South Korea in the U.S. Army, and the interesting thing, what I was told several times, was we're not there to save South Korea from North Korea. If anything, we're there to save North Korea from South Korea, but really we're there to keep them from ever unifying, because A, the U.S. would lose its reason to be there, and B, it would get a very powerful economic competitor if the two
Oh,
Koreas were combined between the resources and the industry in the North and the South. It would not be, they don't want
well,
the extra competitor.
well, I think that in Tokyo probably they have the same feelings to
Yes.
see a united Korea, which is likely to be anti-Japanese and very
Yes.
nationalistic, is not something that you would dream of.
The Japanese, the Koreans and the Japanese have a very rich history, mainly of
Yeah,
Japan invading the Koreans
that's
several
right. That,
times. So yes.
that, that's correct. And when you go even to Seoul, you see that there is an aftertaste.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure. Well, I mean, just look at how many Koreans live in South Sakhalin, and their grandparents were slaves, were Japanese
Uh,
slaves that
uh,
were brought there.
no,
I've
no,
worked
that's
with
right.
several, and yeah.
Yeah. And of course, if you look at the colonial history of Korea, that was not a very happy story.
No, 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 no. Neither is Northern China, for that matter, when the
Yeah,
Japanese
that's also right. Yeah,
Manchuka. Yes, that
yeah,
was yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sure
Mhm.
the Japan, and there are land disputes between Japan and South Korea. Uh,
Oh yeah, oh yes. No, there are. If you look at all these islands, there are many territorial disputes there, and these disputes are far from being resolved. So that's another legacy of the 20th century that we'll have to deal with.
yeah, and they keep finding oil and rich fisheries around those islands, so that doesn't
That's
help
right.
any. They're no
That's
longer
also
just a rock.
yeah. No, we know that. We know we have our own problem with Japanese, and of course, it is also not only about islands, but about the sea shelf, about fisheries, about military,
Oh, yes.
about these mineral resources. So there are many issues involved there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you need to go. Uh, stay a
Well,
little
it was
longer.
nice talking to you. Yeah,
It's same.
so I wish you well, and if you think that there is another specific topic we could discuss, I am at your disposal.
Absolutely. And there will be, and there are, and there will be. It's not all military out there.
I see. Okay.
So, and the world's not getting any simpler, as we've noticed.
I guess not. We still have something to cover.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I won't keep you. I know you've got another appointment. And anybody has comments for Andrey, please, any comments or questions, put them in the commentary. I'll make sure he gets them. I try to read all the comments. Sometimes it gets to be too many of them, but I do try. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Andrei, thank you for being a guest on the show. And we will definitely have another conversation. I promise. Thank you, everyone.